WandaVision is about grief. Let's talk about that. Since we got the season 1 or series finale of WandaVision, there's a lot to talk about the series that got my interest. To start off with the positives, the main positive that I have about the show is the acting. Everyone in this show did an amazing job with the acting. Elizabeth Olsen is phenomenal. Wanda is the main focus of the show. She drives this entire show. And of course we have other characters like we have Vision back, and then we have Agatha Harkness or Agnes, which I would prefer. Great job. Like everyone in the entire cast does a great, amazing job. And what I like about that is that this show brought in some side characters from previous films, like Monica Rambeau from Captain Marvel. She has a major role in this show. We have Jimmy Woo, which has a big presence on the show as well as Darcy. Everyone in the cast does an amazing job bringing the show to life. This is the best that we have seen Wanda Maximoff in the show. She is god level tier. During the show, said that Wanda is so powerful that she could have defeated Thanos by herself during the final act of Endgame. Throughout this entire show, especially in the finale, we see how powerful Wanda is. Even though the show is called WandaVision, Vision is more of a supporting character through Wanda's journey. But this show, it focuses more on the perspectives of both Wanda and Vision and how they deal in life. This show, they made these two Avengers shine and brought into the spotlight, and it works really well. Personally, even though we've seen these characters through since 2015, this is their swan song and their proud moment of achievement, and they brought all, and both Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen brought all during the show, and it shows. Another highlight of the show that I want to touch base on is the aesthetic and the tone that the show gives out. The early half of the show focuses on the novelty of sitcoms, Dick Van Dyke era and the Bewitched series. And then as we progress through the show, we get more sitcoms. Like in episode 3, we got a Brady Bunch style episode. Then in episode 5, we become late 80s, early 90s vibe, and all the way to the end. I think episode 7 is the last time we see the novelty of sitcoms, and each episode has its own identity, and it's also a part of the MCU. Props to the crew and team behind the show, because they were able to create this time period from the past and was able to recreate them and make us feel that we're watching an episode or a show from that era, and it's mind-blowing. They did a really great job in making the feel and the atmosphere of the show. I really enjoyed the story that the show gives out. And pretty much the story of the show is about Wanda's journey into accepting grief and how Wanda views grief. Throughout this whole show, we feel Wanda's pain. Ever since episode 5 or 6, when we see the flashback of what really happened to Vision, that scene alone has been the best scene, the best episode for me personally, because it shows how Elizabeth Olsen can act and deliver that grief and suffering, pain. Throughout the entire show, we question why sitcoms and who created this world, and why is Wanda and Vision in the sitcom realm and the TV aesthetics. That episode, we find out why it happened and how it happened. This show has some twists and turns, and it brings up questions that both the audience and later Vision ask. Why are we here, and what's the purpose of doing this show, and why am I invested? When I said at the beginning, this show's about grief. Throughout the entire journey of this season, we learned that this is mainly Wanda's journey into grief and suffering and trying to cope with the losses that she has in the past.
What is grief, if not love? Persevering.
This is a unique show that Marvel has created, and it works. Everyone's saying that the show is going to impact Doctor Strange 2 and Spider-Man 3, and it shows. Throughout this entire journey, we assume that Wanda is gonna have that antagonist and villainous role because she was bearing all that grief and pain down below, and when she was finally able to release them, she arrives in Westview. She pretty much enslaves the entire town, and hurts me because throughout her journey we see Wanda's kind of the hero. But in this show, she becomes more of a selfish, trying to cope her grief, and thus creating this entire atmosphere of sitcoms because that's her only way of dealing with grief. So it's like how we saw her as a kid during episode 8. It's interesting to see how Wanda's journey has come thus far and able to recreate this whole world. So next up, I want to talk about kind of my mixed feelings of the show. One of my main gripes about the show is the length of some episodes. At least half of the show is based on sitcoms. And we all know that sitcoms are roughly around 25 to 30 minutes. But in some parts of the show, we get the short element and the elements outside the Westview. But that is also like 35 to 40 minutes. So not really a big difference between the sitcom element. That's the main gripe I have to show. Like, they made the show so short because it goes really quick. Like, the episode goes really quick. And when you see it, and it feels that you just start watching the episode and now it's ending. For example, when we got the episode 4, when they gave us the backstory of what happened during the previous 3 episodes for the Sword Agents, the episode is kind of like a 40 to 45 minutes. But for me, it felt like a 30-minute episode. The episode went so quick, and half of the episode is credits. So that makes the show even shorter in comparison. For me, like the sword aspect, for me is the most invested in my time, and that's the section that interests me the most of the sword agent discovering along us what's really happening behind the hex and why is Wanda doing what she's doing. I wish this was longer. Like, I get why the sitcom section is shorter, but I prefer the sword agent storyline to be stretched out into like at least an hour. That way, well paced and more fleshed out. We pretty much talked about the generic show part of the show, but I really want to touch base on the finale. The finale wasn't the best finale of the show. Like, yes, it gives us a satisfying ending to Wanda's journey and her journey into acceptance and accepting her pain and suffering and knowing that whatever she does, she needs to face a real world and face the fact that she needs to live with her grief and cope. But this entire finale felt really quick and it didn't really give much meat to the show because during the final episode, we have the final confrontation with Agatha Harkness and this white vision that we learned that it's actually our original vision, just reprogrammed a little bit. This whole episode felt really rushed and really short because most of this episode is battle. It's a generic fight I've seen multiple times before in the MCU. Having this show being its own identity, reverting back to the MCU, for me it was a bit let down. Best part of the finale has to be the final act of the episode. After Agatha is taken down and Vision is reprogrammed again to be our Vision or our new interpretation of Vision that we may or may not have in the MCU because that part was left open-ended. Wanda finally was able to learn how to accept reality and remove the hex around this town and was able to free all the civilians. But as a result of that, she is sacrificing her own family. The reason why we have Vision and her kids is due to the hex, and if she removed the hex, she is removing everything that she has done. For me, that is the most saddest part I have in this show because we learn Wanda's pain and what she's willing to give up. The final moments of the finale makes me really sad because we grew up with these characters and learning that Wanda has to say goodbye to the people that she loves breaks my heart. She reverts everything back to normal from where she first started. It's sad because for me it felt like an end of an era. The problem I have with the finale is that throughout the entire show we got the speculations and we made up theories on what's going to be the reveal because Kevin Feige said, oh, we're going to have a Luke Skywalker type cameo during the finale of the show. And then we got Bettany saying that he wanted to work with this actor for a really long time, and he was finally able to work with him. And when we saw the finale, nothing really happened. And the whole Pietro situation was a bit lame for me. That part didn't really go nowhere for me. The whole fake Quicksilver aspect, one of the worst parts, because when they first announced Quicksilver was going to be the show and it's going to be Evan Pierce's version, I thought, oh, they finally able to connect the X-Men to the MCU. But no, Quicksilver was just a kid being mind controlled by Agatha. That's all. But this show answers a lot of questions that we have gotten since the beginning of the show, but also left out some questions open-ended for future installments. This whole fan theories and speculations really, for me, it really dragged the show a bit down for me, but I should have assumed that it was just fan theories and speculations just for fun, and we shouldn't have taken that way too seriously. Having my negatives aside, the finale for me was really satisfying, and it finally gave us closure to Wanda's story arc. Elizabeth Olsen's acting is the best that we've seen in the MCU. All in all, I really enjoyed the series. I like the journey of Wanda's grief. It was really well done and a great payoff to Wanda's story arc. Wanda's new costume is unbelievable, and it reminds me a little bit of Magneto's costume from Apocalypse. This show gave its originality tone and gives its own persona. The MCU did an amazing job with the show. It really gave us a payoff to most of the show, and Agatha Harkness was one of the best villains. And the way that the show was distributed, which was weekly, was the best choice that it had, because it gives us wanting more after each episode, and after each week it gives us wanting more rather than releasing the entire 9 episodes at once, because it wouldn't work as much. So if you like the MCU, you can watch the show either way or not. Like, it's available to stream, you can watch it, you can have a good time. I'm giving this show I highly recommend watching this show, especially if you're an MCU lover like I am. My final thoughts, I'm giving this show a B. This show gave us something new and different from the past MCU, and it kicked off Phase 4 in a nice job. Let me know in the comments down below what are your thoughts on this show. If you enjoy what I do, you can hit that subscribe button and bell to get notified for whenever I post, because I post videos like this every single week. I will see you guys next time. Peace.